My name is Cherie Romney, and I have 4 children. My son Everest is 17 years old. He is a junior at Corner Canyon High School. He was incredibly healthy. Had no underlying and has no underlying conditions. He has no blood clot disorders or any other challenge with his health. He's an elite athlete. He was in April of 2021. He had no health problems whatsoever. Everest went in to go get his vaccine because we felt a lot of pressure from the vaccine mandates. There was a lot of talk about potentially needing vaccines for him to participate in tournaments. And going into the summer, for him, this was a really big deal. This summer was supposed to be the summer that he was scouted. On April 21st, Everest got the Pfizer vaccine, his first shot. That night, Everest started to have extreme swelling in his arm and especially in his neck on the right side, same side as he got his shot. He went to a tournament that very weekend, and the swelling continued to increase. By the time he got home, just 2 days later, Everest was in a terrible state. He could not lift his head or move it or his neck without the assistance of his hands because the swelling and the pain was so severe and so extreme. So, of course, we took him to the doctor, and the pediatrician was incredibly dismissive. He said, oh, it's a pulled muscle. Oh, he's just crooked his neck. Oh, he's hit it during a basketball game. Everest said, no, I've been playing basketball for 14 years. I have never felt anything like this. I know what a pulled muscle feels like. That's not what this is. I insisted that they do more tests. So they did this CAT scan, which actually my insurance has never paid for and will not pay for. They did the CAT scan. When they did the CAT scan, they found some swelling or a potential, what we later found out was a blood clot inside his jugular vein on the right side, same side as he got the shot. Within 2 days, Everest was having severe head pain. The head pain did not go away. We went to an Instacare. We went back. We called the doctor twice. We went to the emergency room. Finally, on the 9th day of his migraines, we went to the emergency room, and I insisted that they check his head. So they did. And that's when we found that there were blood clots in his brain. He actually had cerebral venous sinus thromboses on both sides of his brain, as well as an internal jugular vein thrombosis, which is incredibly rare. So when Everest was admitted to the hospital and he ended up in the PEDS ICU, his risk of death from one of those thromboses becoming a catastrophic event was incredibly high. Some of the doctors have hypothesized it was greater than 90%. So we sat there in the ICU, basically hoping Everest would not die because there was very little they could do. They put him on blood thinning medication, but blood thinning medication cannot take away blood clots. It can only prevent them from getting worse. So we sat there and waited. And we waited and hoped his body would absorb it and it wouldn't get worse. Eventually, Everest was transferred from the ICU down to the regular hospital. He ended up being in the hospital for almost 9 days. The entire time we were at the hospital, the doctors were incredibly dismissive. This is not related to the vaccine. And it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter. They did not want to hear it. They did tests on Everest from Black Plague to HIV. They tested him for HIV twice, and they never thought to look really hard at the vaccine. They really dismissed it. In fact, when I would push them, I actually had one of the physicians say, "Why are you being so combative?" And I said, because the symptoms started the night of his shot. I was so frustrated. I found more data about this vaccine and about blood clots and about another woman in her 50s who had had exactly the same reaction to the Pfizer vaccine. I found that data and gave it to the doctors, and they still dismissed me. Everest was 100% sure, and still is 100% sure to this day, that it was the vaccine that caused it. He's never experienced anything like it. He never had migraines before, ever. He never had blood clots before. He never had an injury that felt like that before. And he didn't get an injury when he was playing basketball in the tournament that weekend in that area. So it does not make sense that it was not related to the shot. And I agree with him. He was very frustrated. We all were. There were times when it just felt like it didn't matter what we said and we had no power. We felt totally powerless. If I hadn't pushed to have Everest in the ER, in the ICU, calling the doctors, if I hadn't advocated for him, he probably would not be here today. He would be dead. The blood clots would have killed him. And every once in a while, a doctor would say, yeah, I can see how that makes sense. And they would say it quietly, like they didn't want their colleagues to hear. We are indiscriminately just giving these vaccines to young adults. These young adults have a higher likelihood of being harmed by the vaccine than being harmed by COVID. That means that we are not doing what's medically necessary. We are causing medical harm by vaccinating young adults and if we vaccinate children. The original source of his blood clots in his brain is still there. Our hope is that it is stable, but it is so incredibly rare, the doctors have no idea what is going to happen with it, or if it's going to be there for the rest of his life, if it's going to present a risk down the road. We have no idea. And I know there are a lot of people that are saying people like me are lying. We're not lying. I have 9 days of hospital stay and visits and $100,000 of debt. The doctors don't know how to treat you when you come in because that information has not been shared. So your condition continues to escalate. I would beg them to stop hurting children and teens. I would beg them. Because that's what they're doing. Indiscriminately vaccinating children and teens who do not need the vaccine is causing harm. It is destroying lives, young, healthy lives. I'm lucky. My son is still alive. I know there are other children who are not.